Okay, think things are working now. All right. So if you're here in the stream, please post a comment. Let me know. But I think things are going well now, and let's get started. Okay, so please let me know who you are in the chat. We will start with some questions. All right, great, great, great. Thank you, Professor Purple Cows. All right, if you're interested in what life is like here on Saipan, please feel free to ask any question at all, and I will do my best to answer it. Okay, let's start here. All right, now, just a little bit of background. Just if you're new to the channel, if you're new to what I'm doing here, my name is Walt Goodridge. I'm originally from the island of Jamaica, and I now live on the island of Saipan. I moved here in 2006 after a friend of mine told me all about it. He raved about it in December of 2005, and just from what he said, the people are friendly, the girls are pretty, the weather is nice. It's a laid back community. Something clicked in my mind, and I decided I needed to be there. So I bought a one-way ticket and I ended up on Saipan. And it's been the best decision, one of the top three decisions I've ever made in my life. So since coming to Saipan, I've written several books about the islands. I've gotten awards from the Senate resolution recognizing my contributions to the society. I've gotten the Governor's Humanities Awards, three different Governor's Humanities Awards. I do tours here on the island. I do workshops. I've written books, as I mentioned. So feel free to ask any questions about the island, and I'll do my best to answer them. Okay, have been seeing the news reports of the CNMI budget cuts. What's the mood of the island? How are people holding up? Okay, um, people are always hopeful that things will change, but I think what the primary concern right now is having to do with the labor force. And this has been something that's been going on for many years. Here on Saipan, we have a contract worker visa program, a CW visa. So most of the people who are working in the hospitality industry, the taxi drivers, the restaurant staff are typically contract workers are here on a CW1 visa. And both the Biden administration as well as the Trump administration seem to be wanting to move towards eliminating that sort of guest worker program, ostensibly to give more jobs to the local population, i.e., Americans. So, however, those of us here on this island realize that, as is the case in many other places, for cultural reasons and for reasons of opportunity and levels of work interest in working, that this economy needs the foreign workforce in order to survive. And you may dispute that, you may disagree with that. However, those of us who are here on the island uh, have seen historically that the local workforce is probably best when it's comprised of people who are here specifically to earn American dollars and send it back home. So anyway, that's another discussion. So what most people are concerned about, I believe, is the shrinkage in the workforce due to people leaving the island because they fear being forcibly removed. And there's also a drain on the younger population because a lot of those younger folks are going abroad to study and also to work and go in the military. So most people are aware that things are slowing down here on the island. And I think that's the primary concern. The budget cuts, uh, I did a video a few days ago about the construction, the runway construction on Tinian, and that doesn't seem to have been affected by the budget cuts because those are military contracts that are probably accepted from the budget cuts that are part of the government shutdown. So anyway, most people here tend to be positive. They're aware, they're realistic in the fact that we only have one pillar for the economy, and that is tourism. And we're aware that that is suffering right now. We have a less than 30% occupancy rate in the hotels. So most people have their eyes on what the tourism industry is doing because that's a bellwether of what we can expect here on the island. So hope that's helpful. But for the most part, the folks who I've run into are realistic, but watchful in terms of what may happen next. And there was a poll in the newspaper a few weeks ago asking if people are considering relocating or if they're willing to weather the storm and stick things out. But when you read, if you look at mvariety.com, Mariana's Variety, and take a look at that poll, a couple things to keep in mind is that it may inordinately reflect those individuals who are here on a work visa. So their primary reason for coming to Saipan may have been to specifically earn money so that they can send back to their homeland. So the economy, they're more concerned about the economy and its prospects for long-term growth because that directly affects their livelihood. Whereas there may be other folks here, a local population that may be less concerned about that since they have roots here, they have family here, they are not as dependent on the local economy. They were here before tourism became a thing, they were here before the garment industry became a thing, so they'll be here after. So just something to keep in mind. But generally, long answer to a short question, generally, people are still positive, and those folks who are moving here are also positive. I've spoken to individuals who have just moved to the island within the last 6 months or so. Occasionally, someone will run into me in the supermarket or somewhere outside, and they'll recognize me, and I'll ask them now that they have come to Saipan. What do they think? Is it what they expected? Is it less than what they expected? Are there any deal breakers that they weren't prepared for? And invariably, people are satisfied with their decisions. They are happier here than wherever they're moving from, usually stateside. So things are a lot slower here, a lot friendlier here, a lot less stressful. There's no property tax, no sales tax, no parking meters. The people are generally friendly. So even with the economy suffering a little bit, people are still happy to have relocated here. Okay. What's the best area or neighborhood for a 64-year-old white American man to live? Okay. So, um, it's a small island. It's 13 miles. That question was from Jammer Travels, and he's a longtime viewer of the channel, so thanks for that. Um, I would advise you to take a reconnaissance trip to the island, or if you can only make one trip, then come here, but be prepared to spend a few days scouting around the island to determine what the best neighborhood is for you. Yes, there are certain neighborhoods that may have a little bit of a reputation. I live in a general area in the middle of the island, Chalankanoa and Susupi, and it's near to the library, it's near to the supermarket, it's near to the post office, it's near to the hardware store. So even if I didn't have a car, I could still walk there. So that's a good neighborhood, convenience wise, and it's near to stores that you can walk to. Another neighborhood might be Garapat. That's more the tourist industry, but there are lots of stores and restaurants there as well. Those are two main neighborhoods on the west coast of the island near Beach Road, so it's easily accessible by the transit system, the new transit system. But there may be other factors that you are interested in. Maybe you're interested in a little cooler weather, cooler breeze, then you might like to be up in Navy Hill or Capitol Hill. You might want to see the sunrise as opposed to the sunset. So you might prefer Cagman neighborhood. So I really don't like specifying which is a good or bad neighborhood because it really is a subjective thing. And once you get here, you might have certain preferences and certain deal breakers that make one neighborhood better for you. And thanks for that, Jammer. You are officially the first person to you do a super chat of $5. I wasn't sure whether that worked or not, so I really appreciate that. And thanks again for being the one to suggest the live stream. Really appreciate you for that. Thanks. Okay. Let's see what else. I do have some other questions. Sorry for that. I answered some of these before, but they might be worth answering again. Would you happen to know the approximate cost of renting a car by day, week, and month? Okay. The reason this is an important question is as I suggest, if you are considering moving to Saipan, I would suggest that you not um, commit to any lease or rental agreement or living arrangement until you come to the island and see the island for yourself and check out the lay of the land, get a feel for how things move, get a feel for the neighborhood, and really understand if this is a place you want to settle in for 6 months or a year with a lease. As a result, then you may want to get a hotel room for a few days, for a few weeks, and also rent a car so that you can drive around and see the lay of the land. When I first moved to the island in 2006, there was a company called Cars Unlimited, and you could get a daily rental for $25 a day, a used car. And you can still, even today in 2025, find places that will rent for $30 a day, $35 a day, maybe even 25. So for a 7 day rental a week, you could expect to pay maybe $200 a week or so. And you are free to negotiate because it is a renter's market and a buyer's market right now because of the fluctuating population and the uncertainty. So I would say maybe average $30 a day is something that you could still find on the island to rent. All right. So that's my take on that. All right. Keep asking questions. Anyone? Let's see. Another question. People ask about public transit. Yes, we do now have a public transit system on Saipan. There are some buses that traverse the main road, beach road, so they go back and forth, and students and workers and the elderly and the handicapped are taking these. So it is being put to use, and it is expanding. The CNMI Transit is expanding. It is. I saw a bus up at Northern Marianas College, NMC. So I know there's a route that's taking the students up to the college as well. So it looks like things are progressing. I don't take it myself, but I do see the buses around, and people do tell me that they take them. So we do have a public transit system now. It does not serve the entire island, but it serves the areas that you are probably most likely to want to get to along Beach Road, libraries, hotels, hardware stores, supermarkets, that sort of thing. So it is very convenient for those who don't want to drive. All right. Someone asked an interesting question. Keith C 8108 asked, "Great content. Are you considering buying a home there or lease/leasehold agreement?" So Keith brings up a point that I often mention during my tours, and is something that I will share with you, is that here on Saipan, you and I cannot own property. And by you and I mean people who are not of Northern Marianas descent, people who are not NMDs. If you are not of Northern Marianas descent, then you cannot own land here. You can only lease it for 55 years. So for that's part of the CNMI Constitution. CNMI stands for the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. So the CNMI Constitution, Article 12, says that land ownership is reserved for those who are of Northern Marianas descent. Everyone else, like me and you, if you're watching this, more than likely, will have to lease it for 55 years. And the ongoing debate here is there are some people who say that that's a deterrent and it could be a deal breaker and it may hinder businesses from investing on the island in the island, but it hasn't proven to be the case. Now, of course, I've never done surveys, but we've had businesses here since the islands opened up in the early 70s, and we've had hotels leasing property, we've had businesses start up. So it has not seemed to be a major deterrent to people either moving here or start setting up businesses. But the question was whether I personally have made moves to lease property. No, I have not. I'm still of a nomad mindset. I'm still of a wanderlust predilection. So I tend not to uh, commit to anything or form roots in any one particular place. So no, I'm not particularly um, moving in that direction. But I have been here for quite a few years now, and I like this area because I can use the island as a jump-off point to visit China and Singapore and Thailand and Vietnam and Cambodia, as I've done in the past. And for me, that's the fact that I cannot own property here is not a deal breaker. In fact, as someone from an island myself, it's something that I support, even though I don't have a horse in the race. I think it's cool that the local population has reserved land ownership for themselves, because one of the things that could happen over time is that they get displaced if land ownership is opened up to foreign investors, and then next thing might be property taxes, and then if people are required to pay property taxes, then it might displace a large segment of the population that now own their land free and clear, but if they're required to pay property taxes, then without a source of income in order to meet that demand, then they'll may end up being pushed off their own land. So without getting into too much of the politics, that is the situation here on Saipan. Okay. Um, Saipan is on my list of possibilities. It has a number of appeals. I'd be curious to know what other islands or what other countries you're considering. For many people who are fed up with the rat race stateside, they are looking at, for example, Saipan, they're looking at Guam, they're looking at some even Palau. I know one fellow was looking at Rota specifically because he wanted as little interaction with other human beings as possible. And the population of Rota is close to 2,000 people. Other people are considering Thailand. Other people consider the Philippines as well as a place to relocate to live a different lifestyle. Um, can Americans start and own a business on Saipan? Yes, absolutely. Um, in many ways, Saipan, oh, well, for as far as banking goes, as far as the postal system goes, as far as immigration goes, Saipan, and when I say Saipan, I'm using it collectively to refer to all the islands in the CNMI, is essentially the United States. There are certain differences, but for the most part, anything that you can do in the United States, you can do here. Medicare and Medicaid are here with certain restrictions and stipulations. The U.S. postal system here, mailing a letter from here to the Jersey is the same as mailing it from Jersey to New York, so it's considered domestic mail. So yes, you can start a business here. It is actually easier to start one here. The bureaucracy that you might run into stateside is less here. So you can easily start a business, $100 business license fee, um, and, uh, and filling out the appropriate tax forms, and you can easily start a business here. So yes, absolutely. And in fact, that is something I would suggest. If you are planning to move here to Saipan and you don't have a regular source of income, whether that is rental income from stateside or a retirement income or investment income, then you might be wise to figure out a way to generate your income from off island. So this is just some general advice that I like to give to people. If you can find a way to generate your income from off island, whether you're doing ESL, English as a second language classes, whether you're doing a remote job where you can live anywhere but do your job remotely, whether you have cryptocurrency investment income, whether you have stock income, whether you have rental income, you have a place still in the States and you decide to rent it out to someone stateside while you live here on Saipan, then that's something that you might want to consider so that you're not dependent on the local economy. If at all possible, that's something that I would suggest. So to answer your question, yes, Americans can start and own a business on Saipan. And however, if you can do something that, well, I'll make both suggestions. Yes, it would be welcome here because you would be helping the local economy. But at the same time, for your own personal survival, if you can create streams of income that do not depend on the local economy, I think that would be a wiser move. All right. I've adapted to my old stomping grounds here in Spokane, Washington, but I do not have a lot to hold me here. They've saved my material possessions that may possess me. Yes, okay. So David Parker says, even though he moved to Spokane, Washington, um, he doesn't have a lot to hold him there, except his material possessions, and that may possess me. Yeah. So just as a philosophical point, the more things that you own is the less free you are. When I moved to Saipan, I had to give up my 5,000 plus vinyl LP collection. I didn't give it up directly. I gave it to a friend to hold on to. But over the years, I think he may have gotten rid of it. In fact, I'm afraid to contact him because I'm afraid to hear what has happened to all my prized vinyl records. I gave away a lot of books. I gave books to people. So one of the things that I had to do before moving to Saipan was become even more of a minimalist than I already believed myself to be. And I gave away many possessions in order to free myself. So one of the things to keep in mind, just as a philosophical way of looking at the world, is that the more things that you own is the more those things own you, because you think of moving, it becomes harder. You're thinking of shipping all of these records, to the island. So the more you are attached to material things, is the less free that you'll be to enjoy your life, in my opinion. So of course there are certain things that are irreplaceable. So one of the things I always joke about with my friends is that if there were a fire and I had to vacate the premises, I'd grab my passport, even though that's replaceable, but it just makes life a little easier. But I'd also grab my photo albums or my hard drive with the digitized albums because those cannot be replaced. It's one of the very few things that cannot be replaced if those were to be destroyed. Everything else can be replaced. Your cameras can be replaced. Your laptop can be replaced. Your shoes, your clothing, all of that stuff, for the most part, can be replaced. So the only things, that moment in time, that snap, that the light rays bouncing off that individual into the camera, that cannot be ever duplicated. You can't go back in time and do that. But anyway, I ramble on. So my point is that yes, do not get caught up in one of the major lessons in life, in my opinion, or two major lessons are forgiveness and detachment. If you can make those uh, make that a focus in life, the ability to forgive and move on, and the ability to detach, whether it's detaching from material possessions, whether it's detaching from outcomes, you'll be much freer. If you can, the only source of unhappiness in life is an unmet expectation. People are attached to their expectations of the way people should behave, the way people should think, the way things should be, the way they should be treated. But the less of those expectations you have, the freer you will be. because, again, unhappiness is caused by an unmet expectation. That's the single cause of unhappiness in life. So if you remove the expectation, become less detached, you will be on your way to happiness. But all right. Would you ever consider doing a Guam versus Saipan video? I have actually done two of those. If you go to the channel, go to the Discover Saipan channel and just type in Guam in the search box, you will see at least two videos where I go into the pros and cons of Guam versus Saipan. And now this is going to seem biased, but many of the people I've spoken to are who are here, and I guess by definition that means they prefer Saipan, have discussed with me the fact that Guam to them, nice place, nice people, more options, but they like the feel of Saipan a little bit better. And again, it depends on what's a deal breaker for you, what your non-negotiables are. I like the fact that things are not manicured. I like the fact that there's still a rough, rustic feel to the island. I like the fact that, again, it's not manicured to the point where every neighborhood is the same. So it has a personality to it. You can still drive on the street and see mangoes, littering the pavement. And so I like that feel. I like the fact that it's a small island, more of a sense of community. People know a little bit about you. There's good and bad about that. But so in terms of Guam versus Saipan, I prefer Saipan, obviously. Guam is a little bit too big, a little bit too spread out, less parking in certain of the major areas. It reminds me of New York, the fact that I can drive somewhere and have to search around for parking. Whereas here on Saipan, anyone you want to visit, you just pull up to their house, drive up on the grass, and you're there. So that's my take. So for me, growing up in Jamaica, this has more of a feel of Jamaica to me. It's one of the things I did not like about California. I went to visit a friend in Los Angeles years ago, my friend Delroy, and we drove from his place and we drove and we drove and we drove 70 miles an hour for an hour all the way to another part of California, and everything looked exactly the same as it did where we just left. The blueprint for the each city was pretty much the same, so there was no personality that I could discern. So that sort of monotonous appearance is something that doesn't appeal to me just based on how I grew up and what I perceive reality to be. So that's just my opinion. All right. Um, okay. Let's go to the list of questions. All right. I alluded to this before, but I'll expand on it a little bit more. Juno6602 asks, is it typically difficult for working age mainland transplants to find work? Most of the people with whom I've spoken are individuals who had already secured their employment before moving to Saipan. So I've given tours to an individual who got a job with the governor's office as an assistant AG. I gave someone a tour who was a doctor, worked for CHCC, Commonwealth Healthcare Corporation. I've given tours to people who are teachers. I've met individuals who have secured their jobs either with the government or with a law firm before they came to the island. So their income was secured. If you are coming here of a working age, then I would advise doing as much as you can to secure some sort of employment before coming here. One of the things you might want to check are the job vacancy announcements. So here on Saipan, a business is required to post a JVA, job vacancy announcement, in the local papers and conspicuously on their website or the JVA website, announcing a job opening so that everyone can have the opportunity to apply, and that there's no bias or favoritism that goes on. So if you do a search for JVA Saipan, JVA CNMI, Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, then you'll see what's available beforehand. But again, and I'll repeat, if you can find a way to generate your income off island, then that might be the best thing for you. It's a very sort of bare bones economy. You go around the island and you'll see a few things. You'll see laundromats, you'll see um, restaurants. You won't see a lot of diverse entrepreneurial ventures off the beaten path. So it's not the sort of thing, and as a result, the job opportunities that will exist will be common opportunities that exist for someone who's working in the hospitality industry, um, or the restaurant industry. So it's if you're looking for an engineering job, then you may want to contact the uh, any engineering firms that might be on island. There are a few of those. Maybe if you're specializing, maybe you have a law degree, then you may want to contact an existing lawyer who's doing business here. But for the most part, there's not a wide range of available jobs. Another thing you might want to do, let's say, is contact the hotels. The few hotels that might be hiring. Maybe you have a culinary degree. Maybe you have experience in the hospitality field as a manager of some sort, project manager in construction. Then those are uh, degrees that you might be able to avail some employment. So that's a suggestion for you. But check out the JVAs, the job vacancy announcements, and see if those have anything that might be available to you. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Okay. Some of these I've answered before in other videos, but I will go over a few of them here. Okay. Um, One of the things that comes up occasionally is the availability of items here on Saipan. Because it's a small island, it's only 13 miles by 5 miles. Because shipping can make certain items prohibitively expensive, then people sometimes worry if they'll be able to purchase certain items that they're used to getting in the States. And for the most part, you can. If you're willing to pay extra for shipping, pay a premium for shipping, um, or if you're willing to do the necessary searching to find it online, then you might be able to avail yourself of most items. Now, someone asked, for example, heavy exercise equipment. That's something that might be difficult to get here if you want to order it online, because then you'll pay an arm and a leg in shipping. However, if you go on Facebook, you can find numerous Saipan buy and sell Facebook groups through which you can buy used items. Um, you might want to check out certain stores, wholesale stores that may be purchasing items by container. So, for example, I have recalled seeing actual saunas for sale at the Joten Superstore, formerly known as Priced Costco. And so large items like exercise bicycles, trampolines, or even saunas, at-home sauna, plug-in saunas, are available here. So you might want to contact that store and put in a request, and then maybe in a few months they might have an order where they can include that item. So it is possible to get certain, hard to get certain otherwise prohibitively expensive items here on the island. But for the most part, I haven't run into people who've had major difficulties, because typically, if you're wedded to the idea of getting a particular item that is outside of the norm of the average individual, then usually that also you also are willing to spend a little extra for it. So there are certain items I have bought that online, certain health items, um, what an ozonator, for example, or a certain juicer that a masticating juicer that I like that I couldn't get here, that I'm willing to pay Amazon and pay extra for shipping to get it here. So that's a resource to be aware of is that Amazon does ship here and it takes about 7 days to get items here on the island. Okay, great, great, great. I want to thank everyone for checking in. And I apologize again for the mix up with the software, but for those of you who stuck it out and were patient, thanks. Uh, All right. So another question, but some of my answers to this might be helpful for you. What made you choose Saipan over the USA? All right. So just for the record and just for purists, Saipan is part of the USA for all intents and purposes and for immigration purposes specifically. But the question, because we're 8,000 miles away and in the middle of the Western Pacific, and because it's a Chamorro Island and Chamorro and Carolinian Island, I often tell people it is not part of the part of the U.S. and don't come here believing that it is uh, culturally just like the U.S. because it's not. But anyway, what made me choose Saipan over the USA? For me, it's the weather. The weather is a major um, non-negotiable for me. I never liked living in the States. It was just too cold. I remember going out certain days in New York in winter and actually feeling the moisture on my eye balls starting to crackle because they were freezing. So that to me is an inhuman way of living. The cold weather was a deal breaker for me. The level of stress and tension um, is something that if you haven't lived there and if you haven't dealt with the Department of Motor Vehicles in New York and you or the people at the post office, then you might not really understand what I'm talking about. But there seems to be a level of stress that permeates the entire society that affects people and their level of tolerance and their friendliness and their general predisposition. So in general, to me, it was just an unnecessarily hostile place to live. All right, that's my experience, and then the cost. Um, just there seems to be whenever you step outside of your house in New York, automatically $20 just disappears from your wallet. Those things were just massively too expensive and unnecessarily hostile. And then the weather. So those for me are some of the things that I didn't like about the States, or about New York in particular. And then for me, I like a lot of things about the Pacific Island culture and the Asian culture that make it much friendlier for me to be here than it is in the States. So when I go to China, when I go to Singapore, and I go to Laos and Cambodia, just the interaction with the people is just really pleasant, really nice. Now, some of that I know is because I'm perceived as the exotic foreigner in a foreign land. Many people don't see Jamaicans walking up and down um, in little villages in Xishuangbanna, China, so I tend to stand out there. But generally, the people are very friendly, very welcoming, very curious in Asia when I go traveling. So that's one of the reasons that I choose living here than in the States, even though many of my friends are in the States and my family's there. So for me, those are the reasons why I choose Saipan over the States. All right. Uh, How long is the wait for a U.S. Postal Service PO box? Okay, I have the answer to that question. So, just for those of you who are not familiar, there is no mail delivery here on Saipan. There is no at-home mail delivery here on Saipan. And many people, myself included, didn't realize that until I came here. And for some people, knowing that in advance seems a bit odd. But I understand there are all the small towns all over the US and the Midwest US where that's a similar thing, and possibly in Alaska as well. But there is no mail service, no mail carriers delivering mail to your apartment or to your home here on Saipan. There, many of the streets don't have names on them. If they do, many people don't know what street their home is on. I can attest to that because on unless and until I had to fill out a form that specifically asked for it, and many forms don't. I did not know what street I was living on here on Saipan. So and there are no many of the homes don't have numbers on them. If you happen to see any videos with numbers on the buildings or on the homes, it's not for mail delivery. Those are a new system that's being put in place for the EMS service, for the ambulances and firefighters so that they can locate homes, in case of emergency. But there is no mail delivery here on Saipan. Okay, as a result, if you move here, you will have to get a PO box, and your two options are you can get a PO box from free of charge from the U.S. Postal Service, and there are several thousand available. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think at just one location I think there are at least 5,000 boxes, and then combined there might be about 8 to 10,000 total. Someone please correct me on that, but I did ask that question to the postmaster years ago, and I think that was it. But anyway, so you have to get a PO box. You can either get one free of charge by joining a mailing list, or you can pay a company maybe $10 a month for mail delivery service or for a PO box. And I was just there about 3 weeks ago with a fellow who was doing a reconnaissance tour, and we got the form necessary to apply for the PO box. And I was told by the clerk behind the counter that the person right in front of us had just claimed their PO box, and she had applied just 3 months prior, just 2 to 3 months prior. So it seems that now people are leaving, the population is dwindling a little bit, so the wait for a PO box could be 2 months or 2 or 3 months, say 90 days. But again, depends on a lot of different factors. Don't quote me on that. But it's not as long as when I first moved here on the island when there were 70,000 people on the island. So it should definitely be a little less of a wait time. Okay, what else do we have here? All right, some of these are just opinion questions that you may or may not be interested in. But what is the temperature like year-round on Saipan? We are actually in the Guinness Book of World Records as having the most equable temperature in the world. And my Guinness book isn't here right now; it's in my car. But I think in the 90s, we were in the Guinness Book of World Records as having the world's most equable temperature, 79 to 89 all year round. And it often feels much hotter than that in the 90s, probably, but that's the year-round temperature. Okay. Um, how about natural disasters, hurricanes, typhoons, earthquakes? Occasionally, you'll wake up in the morning and read in the paper that there was an earthquake way up north overnight. But generally, I've only ever experienced the tremors once years ago. Generally, it's not something that I experience or that is as really noticeable as it would be in California. We do have a rainy season, so we do have typhoons every few years. There's a major typhoon. The last big one, I believe, was Typhoon U2, YUTO, and that was in 2018, I think. We had over 200-mile-an-hour winds, so it was um, something that does happen every now and then. And again, our rainy season is between July, August, September, and October. All right. Okay. Question. Um, So one rents a PO box until he can get a free one. Yep, that could be a way to do it. So you can get a paid PO box until um, there's unless you have a friend of who can let you use his PO box until you get yours. But yeah, that generally is what you would do. One of the first things I do when I do my relocation tours is there are certain forms, and in fact, I've put some of those together in a relocation quick start packet. Relocation quick start packet that has tax forms, that has the PO box rental application, and uh, I'll put a link to this in the description. But you can download these if you like. Um, Relocation fast track kit that will give you some of the forms that you need in advance. And once you get here, you can apply for them. So yes, you can rent one until you get one of your own. Okay, let's see. Feel free to ask any questions. Feel free to follow Jammer Travels and do a super chat and help me test out the system. How do you get in contact with you? The best way to reach me is if you just want to email directly, it's walt@discoversaipan.com. And also, if you'd like to learn more about the tours, you can go to discoversaipan.com. And if you want to either do a relocation tour or a reconnaissance tour, I'll send information about those and the schedule and the itineraries and my availability. Could someone live there on 1,500 to 1,800 USD a month? My answer is yes. Um, and I went through this exercise before, but I'll do it really quickly here. Rent could be easily 400, 500, 600. It goes up, but you could get an apartment for, let's say, $500 a month. You could get liability insurance on a car for $200 a year. Food for me was is about $300 a month. I eat locally. I don't eat U.S. food for the most part. I buy locally, except for certain items. Uh, Maybe health insurance. If you have that, you might want to factor that in as well. But what else? Those are maybe utilities. And for many people, it's included in the rent. But if you're, let's say, utilities, when I was paying utilities directly, it was $75 a month. But I don't use AC and I don't use um, any major equipment, stereo equipment, or anything like that. Just a laptop and a refrigerator. But if you use air conditioning, it could be easily maybe 150 a month for to 200 maybe for AC, depending on the size of your house. So with those figures, that's the main thing: food, rent, car insurance. That could easily be less than 2,000 or a month. So that's my experience as a single guy with no vices except for terror chips and Laura bars, and living frugally, living simply. uh, I think it's doable. That's my opinion. All right. Are there any e-bike mechanics here on Saipan? Not to the best of my knowledge. There are probably people here who could figure it out, but we don't have that many. So it would probably be a new skill that they're developing. But if the um, if the mechanics are essentially the same or close enough, I'm sure there are people who could figure it out. But one of the things you also have, that's a good question. I'm going to look into that a little bit more and find out if any special diagnostic equipment is needed that may or may not exist here. So I'll talk to a friend who works at one of the car companies to find out, and also a mechanic to find out where the level of expertise stands, technical expertise stands as far as e-bikes go. But that's something definitely to be concerned about. All right, let's see what else here. We're going to wrap it up soon. Um, okay. All right. Okay. Are you still the only Jamaican on Saipan? Are there Jamaican restaurants? B. Rolicon asked that question. No Jamaican restaurants. The closest is you'd probably have to go to Guam. I understand that there's a Jamaican bar and grill on Guam. I've never eaten there, but it exists, so you can check that one out. As far as me being the only Jamaican, to the best of my knowledge, I'm sure there must be at least one or two, but being the um, hermit and the reclusive and the introvert I have not gone looking for any. All right. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Okay, so unless you guys have any specific questions, I really do appreciate you guys sticking around and asking the questions. This is really patient of you. All right. There is one thing I will allude to, but I'm not going to answer it here. And then the question was asked by Indigo for Soul, and she said, "Hi, can you please discuss your experience probably being amongst only a handful of people that look like you, color-wise?" She says, "I've always been open to living amongst different cultures, races, etc., and exposing myself to different and unfamiliar environments, but I'd like to know what to expect as a brown-skinned Melungeon moving to a less diverse area." As I mentioned, there are certain topics that um, I decided not to broach here on the channel because I want to keep the tone a particular way. And unfortunately, I have noticed that now don't take offense at this because some of my best friends are American, but I have noticed that many um, Americans, growing up in the American society, people tend to place an inordinate focus on race and issues of color and discrimination, that sort of thing. And it's not a reality that I grew up in. So I'm often reluctant to answer those questions because I don't know if I can give the sorts of answers that really people are looking for or used to. And I don't want the channel to be flavored by that, even though if you're asking that question, then you think that it's an important part of of your experience. But so as not to deprive you, though, of my opinion, I did craft an answer, and it is on my Patreon. So if you go to patreon.com/Walt Goodridge, you'll be able to find an answer and access that particular video. But I will say this, and I said this to the person who also asked about Howley hate. Howley, Haole, is a Hawaiian word that means outsider, means foreigner, but has evolved to mean simply white person. And I think I mentioned on that video as well that I believe that you attract what you expect. And if you have been steeped in a reality that has you believe that the world perceives you a certain way, and if you have been steeped in a reality that has you believe and perceive the world a certain way and interpret things in a particular way, then unfortunately, you are going to filter and view all of life's experiences through that particular lens. And as a result, you may not be seeing what is actually there. You may be seeing what you expect and what you believe to be there. And of course, people refer to that as a confirmation bias. And you tend to only see the things that confirm your bias, and you disregard and often don't even see the things that don't align with and comport with your pre-existing bias. So the danger of coming from a society or any society is that unless you are able to really clear your slate and see the world and see yourself and see other people and interpret people's behavior and assign motives to their behavior that are different from what you're used to, then you may end up replicating and duplicating the same reality no matter where you go. As the saying goes, everywhere you go in life, there you are. Because what you are experiencing is merely a reflection of what's on the inside. And I've seen that um, many times with people who will look at a situation, the same situation I'm looking at, but their particular bias has them interpret it in one way. And I suggest to them that perhaps it might not be that way, it might be another way. But that's one of the most difficult things to do is for you to question your own reality, is for you to see something really objectively, because that is difficult for the average person, especially if they have reached a certain age where they're convinced that the world is a certain way. Then it's difficult for them to see any other reality, even one that's staring them in the face. Um, all right. I really appreciate that. Consider having a weekly live stream. This time slot is great for East Coast America. Cool. I will consider that because it helps really answer questions in a more interpersonal, more direct way. So, yes, I'll definitely consider that. All right. So the question is good question. Joseph asked, are there employment opportunities on Tinian with the development of the runways? Again, unfortunately, I don't see that. I've been there, I was just there last week, and at the moment, just for those of you who are not aware, the runways, there are about two or three major government contracts underway on Tinian, and one of them involves the clearing and expansion and ultimate repaving of the historic runways that were built in 1944 to 1945, and from which the Enola Gay B-29 and Boxcar B-29 took off to bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And those contracts have now been in effect for at least a year now. Um, but the people who are working there, from what I've seen, I've seen some local workers who are flying over to work on the construction sites. But for the most part, I've seen contractors from overseas who are now on site. So it doesn't appear, I could be wrong, if you're with the mayor's office or if you live on Tinian, definitely correct me on this, but it seems that there it's going to be a while before there's any trickle down effect on the local population. Yes, there will be car rental agencies that have a little bit more business. Yes, there might be some restaurants that have a little more business. Um, some people renting apartments might have some more business, but for the most part, I don't see any businesses being set up as a result of the runways. That could come further down the line if there's an influx of personnel. One of the things that has always been talked about ever since I came here to Saipan is the military buildup on Guam. So apparently the plan is for troops stationed currently in Okinawa to be re-stationed on Guam and possibly Saipan. And as a result, there were many people who moved to Guam in anticipation of greater opportunities on Guam, and people who are looking to Saipan and to Tinian in the hopes that military personnel moving here might boost the economy. So that would be the only thing that I could see really affecting the economy is there were a sufficient number of people moving in such that there would be a demand for housing, demand for food that could directly affect what the vendors on Tinian and on Saipan need to order in order to meet that demand. But absent that, if it's just construction, at present, there might be opportunities for some engineers, for some architects, perhaps, but remember, the bidding process has already gone through. So um, all of the design work has already taken place. So I'm not sure if that would really result in any major boost to the economy as yet. But I'll keep my eye open on it. But one thing you could do is check out the contracts. Go online and search for military contracts on Tinian, and they will actually be itemized, specifically the dollar amount, the companies that got the contract, and you might want to contact them directly to find out the scope of the contract. Much of this is public information. Find out the scope of the contract and the duration, and also from there, you might be able to extrapolate what opportunities might exist, and you might even be able to anticipate some opportunities and position yourself in such a way that you can capitalize on those. So that's my suggestion. Um, but as of now, I don't see any major changes as a result of the buildup on Tinian. Are there any dairy farms? Everyone needs more cows. There are people both on Saipan and Tinian who raise cattle and pigs and chickens, and so that demand exists here, and the supply also exists here on Saipan as well. I can't really speak any more on that in terms of what it would require for you to come and set up your own piggery or dairy farm. But that's a good point in that catering to the food demand is always a good move, provided it's not saturated. All right. Cool, cool, cool. All right, so we're going to wrap it up. Let's take one or two more questions, but again, really appreciate you guys tuning in. Glad we were able to make it happen. And just as an administrative thing, I'll just suggest please check out the discoversaipan.com website. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And it's a thing that many people don't like to do, but it would help um, prove to the powers that be at YouTube that the channel is serving a valuable purpose. If you can like and subscribe and comment to the videos. You can also contribute a super chat of any amount. I think $99.99 is the least you can contribute, but that would help as well. Um, and let's see what else. Check out the store, the YouTube store. I have some books and products that might be helpful as well. Okay. And finally, I'll end with this. I have a feeling that demand is going to skyrocket soon when people learn about this place. Yep, that's been happening for many years. It's still one of the best kept secrets in America. Um, many people don't know about Saipan, don't know where Saipan is. I happen to run into people who do because of the tours that I do. So many folks who do my tours are familiar with Saipan and its role in the World War II and the Japanese and the Pacific Theater. But many people, including many people at the post office, many people in the government, are not familiar with Saipan and what we have out here. And that's been good and it's been bad in certain regards. But yes, there is increasing demand. And another major YouTube channel uh, did an interview with me recently, and that's going to be aired soon, focusing on Tinian and the runways. So I expect that there will be greater interest. And I'll end with this. Uh, One of the things that I do in my tours is I mention the Amelia Earhart connection here on Saipan. It's something that I discovered once I moved here, is that despite what you've been led to believe, there are people here for the last 80 years who've told a different story about Amelia Earhart's demise. And the short version is that she ended up in Japanese custody. She ended up here on Saipan, and she was imprisoned in the old Japanese jail. And I'll leave the rest of the story for you when you take my tour when I do the video. But she met her final days. She and Fred Noonan met their final days here on Saipan. And there have been people who've researched this. And apparently, it has gotten to the ears of Donald Trump, and he is um, has made tweets about releasing the Amelia files and getting to the bottom of what really happened. And I'm going to make a prediction. There's some news reports about individuals who believe that they have located her plane, the Lockheed Electra, at the bottom of the ocean of a particular island. And if I'm wrong, I will apologize to them. But based on what we know, and when I say we, I mean those of us here on this side of the world, based on the testimony of Marines, based on the testimony of Pacific Islanders who claim to have seen the woman who looked like dressed like a man with short hair and her pilot in Japanese custody, based on the military personnel who said they held her uh, um, papers and documents in hand after the Battle of Saipan, and the military personnel who say that her Lockheed was destroyed on the runway here on Saipan. And based on that, I don't believe that what they are looking at the bottom of the ocean is the Lockheed Electra. So if the eyewitness accounts are to be believed that have been part of the story and part of even a History Channel documentary that's now difficult to find, uh, they are they are not going to be successful in identifying it as the Lockheed Electra. And I believe that the Lockheed Electra was destroyed here on Saipan based on some uh, testimonial accounts that exist. So anyway, with that said, thank you guys. Thanks, David. Thanks, Joseph. Thanks, Jammer. Thanks, Purple Cows, and everyone for participating. And I will see you guys in the next live stream and the next video. Thanks for watching.